The hospital was alive with the usual hustle and bustle of a busy morning. Nurses hurried down the corridors carrying charts and medicine trays, the faint beep of monitors filled the air, and the distant chatter of patients and visitors created a constant hum of activity. In the middle of this controlled chaos, one nurse stood out, not because she sought attention, but because of the calm and confident way she moved through the ward. Her name was Angela, a dedicated black nurse known among her colleagues for her professionalism, patience, and ability to stay composed even in the most stressful situations. She had been working at the hospital for several years and had earned the respect of her peers for her expertise and her genuine care for her patients. This particular morning, Angela was finishing her routine rounds. She had just checked on Mrs. Williams, an elderly patient recovering from surgery, making sure she had taken her medication and that her vitals were stable. She paused for a moment to adjust the blankets and smiled reassuringly at the patient. Mrs. Williams returned the smile, clearly comforted by Angela's presence. It was moments like these that reminded Angela why she loved her job, despite the long hours and constant pressures. While Angela continued her rounds, the atmosphere shifted slightly as the doctor on duty approached. Dr. Harris was known for his expertise, but also for his sharp tongue and critical nature. He had a reputation for being intimidating, especially to younger staff or anyone who didn't meet his high standards perfectly. He walked down the hallway briskly, clipboard in hand, his gaze scanning the room like a hawk. Angela noticed him coming and instinctively straightened her posture, a mix of respect and caution in her movements. She had worked with Dr. Harris before and knew that he could be harsh and unforgiving, but she also knew how to navigate his temperament with professionalism. In the room where Angela was currently stationed, a patient lay in bed, quietly observing everything around him. He was relatively new to the hospital and hadn't interacted much with the staff yet. At first glance, he seemed calm and unremarkable, simply another person waiting for treatment. But there was an air of attentiveness about him, a sense that he noticed more than he let on. Angela greeted him politely, explaining the procedures for the day and making sure he felt comfortable. She moved with the practiced ease of someone who had seen countless patients before, her actions measured and considerate. Her focus was entirely on the patient's well-being, unaware that the morning would soon take a dramatic turn. As Angela continued her duties, the hum of the hospital seemed to fade into the background. She prepared medication, checked charts, and ensured that everything was in order for the day's rounds. There was a rhythm to her work, a steady flow that kept the ward functioning smoothly. Other nurses passed by, exchanging quick nods or brief smiles, acknowledging each other's presence without stopping the flow of work. The environment was intense but controlled, a delicate balance that required focus and attention to every detail. Dr. Harris entered the room suddenly, his presence commanding immediate attention. The atmosphere changed instantly. Angela, though experienced, felt a flicker of tension. She knew from past interactions that any small mistake could draw criticism, and she prepared herself mentally to respond to whatever he might say. The patient in the bed looked up, curious about the sudden shift in energy, sensing the authority and intensity the doctor brought into the room. There was an unspoken tension, the kind that makes even a routine day feel charged with anticipation. Angela began her explanation of the patient's progress and care routine, speaking clearly and confidently. She detailed the medications administered, the patient's reactions, and any concerns that had arisen. Dr. Harris listened, his expression unreadable, occasionally glancing at his clipboard. The room seemed to shrink slightly with the weight of his presence, and Angela made sure to maintain her composure, showing respect while staying firm in her knowledge and actions. She moved efficiently, ensuring every task was done correctly, knowing that even minor errors could be magnified under his scrutiny. Meanwhile, the patient continued to watch, absorbing the interaction silently. He seemed almost like a spectator in a small drama unfolding before him, noticing the subtle exchanges, the body language, and the tension in the room. What he didn't reveal, and what Angela didn't yet know, was that he would play a pivotal role in the events about to unfold. For now, he remained still, listening carefully, his presence adding an unseen layer of pressure to the already tense environment. In this moment, the scene was set, a skilled nurse performing her duties with dedication, a critical doctor with a sharp edge, and a quiet patient whose true significance was hidden beneath the surface. Everything seemed ordinary at first, yet under the surface, the stage was perfectly prepared for a dramatic and unforgettable turn of events. The hospital, a place of care and healing, became the backdrop for a confrontation that would challenge pride, professionalism, and ultimately reveal deeper truths about respect and recognition. The calm of the hospital room didn't last long. As Dr. Harris's sharp gaze scanned the charts on his clipboard, Angela could feel the tension in the air thickening. There was something in his posture today, a barely concealed impatience, a hint of condescension that made even the most confident nurses straighten reflexively. Angela, however, refused to let it shake her. She had learned early in her career that staying composed was not only professional but also a shield against unnecessary criticism. Why wasn't this administered on time? Dr. Harris's voice cut through the room like a blade, startling the patient and making Angela's colleagues flinch. The doctor's tone wasn't just questioning, it was accusatory, almost theatrical in its harshness. He wasn't simply asking for information, he was performing a public display of dominance, using the room as his stage. Angela's heart raced for a brief second, but she forced herself to respond calmly. It was administered exactly 30 minutes later than the schedule due to the patient's fluctuating vitals. I ensured that the dosage was safe and monitored closely. Dr. Harris's eyes narrowed. Safe. Safe isn't enough. This is about following procedures to the letter. You should know that by now. His words were laced with contempt, and his tone carried a weight that made it feel less like feedback and more like a personal attack. Angela felt a sting of frustration. She had devoted years to mastering her work, yet here she was, being belittled in front of the patient she was caring for. Every word he spoke seemed designed to undermine her confidence, to make her feel small in front of the people she was serving. The patient, initially quiet, shifted slightly in bed, observing the exchange. There was a subtle tension in his expression, a mix of curiosity and concern. He wasn't just watching the interaction, he was absorbing it, noting the dynamics between the nurse and the doctor. Angela, aware of the patient's eyes on her, focused on maintaining a professional demeanor. She refused to let Dr. Harris see her frustration, though internally, a storm was brewing. What about the medication chart? Dr. Harris pressed, leaning closer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. It looks like someone forgot to update the records properly. Are you even paying attention to your responsibilities? He spoke slowly, emphasizing every word, as if the nurse's failure was the most important event in the room. His criticism was public, personal, and humiliating, designed to show dominance over both Angela and the patient. Angela took a steadying breath and responded evenly. The chart was updated immediately after the dosage was given, as per protocol. Everything was documented correctly. Despite the professionalism in her voice, she felt the heat of embarrassment rising. She could see the subtle smirks and whispers from other staff outside the room, and though she tried to ignore them, the humiliation stung. The doctor, oblivious to the emotional toll he was inflicting, continued his performance, pacing slightly, clipboard in hand, demonstrating his authority with every step. It wasn't just about the criticism, it was the way he spoke, the way he assumed superiority, and the complete lack of acknowledgement for the nurse's years of experience and dedication. Angela's mind raced, analyzing each word, each gesture, but she refused to react emotionally. She had faced difficult colleagues before, but Dr. Harris's methodical public humiliation was sharper, more calculated. She focused on the patient, trying to provide reassurance through her composure and calm explanations, even as the doctor continued to belittle her. The patient's expression shifted from curiosity to something more thoughtful. He didn't interrupt, but there was a spark in his eyes, a recognition that something was off. He saw the nurse's professionalism, the care she extended, and contrasted it with the doctor's harshness. It was a subtle observation, but it would become crucial later. For now, the patient remained silent, absorbing every detail, while Angela continued to handle the situation with remarkable poise. Time seemed to stretch in that small room. Each second of humiliation felt heavier than the last. Angela maintained her composure, correcting minor misunderstandings and answering questions patiently, while Dr. Harris continued his relentless critique. It was a delicate balance, responding with authority without anger, showing competence without confrontation. Every word Angela spoke was measured, every gesture controlled, all while enduring the public scrutiny of both the doctor and the patient. In that moment, the stage was perfectly set for what would come next. The tension, the unspoken judgment, and the unnoticed observations of the patient all converged into a fragile web, waiting for the inevitable revelation. Angela's dignity in the face of humiliation, the doctor's arrogance, and the patient's quiet attentiveness created a charged environment. This was no ordinary hospital interaction, it was a dramatic prelude to a story of justice, recognition, and a humbling twist that no one in the room could yet anticipate. The patient in the hospital bed had been quiet for most of the interaction, seemingly just another observer in the room. At first glance, he appeared calm, almost indifferent, as if he were simply passing time during his recovery. But beneath that composed exterior, his mind was anything but idle. He noticed every detail, the way Dr. Harris's eyes narrowed with each word, the sharp inflection in his voice when issuing criticism, and the subtle tension in Angela's posture. Each movement, each pause, and each word was catalogued in his mind like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be assembled. He had been in many professional environments in his life, accustomed to reading people and situations carefully. What unfolded before him was more than a routine hospital interaction, it was a display of power dynamics, a glimpse into the subtle ways authority can be wielded and, at times, misused. He saw the injustice in the doctor's actions immediately. Dr. Harris wasn't offering constructive criticism, he was humiliating Angela, exposing her to judgment in a way that served no purpose other than to assert dominance. The patient's respect for the medical profession wavered for a brief moment as he recognized this misuse of authority. But his attention wasn't solely on the doctor. Angela's composure captivated him. Despite the condescending tone and public embarrassment, she maintained professionalism and dignity, addressing the doctor's accusations with clarity and calm. Every explanation she gave, every controlled gesture, displayed a level of poise that spoke volumes about her experience and integrity. She wasn't just a nurse performing routine tasks, she was a professional handling adversity with courage. The patient felt an unspoken admiration building inside him, recognizing the strength it took to endure such treatment without losing one's composure. As the verbal sparring continued, the patient's mind began to weigh the implications of the situation. He thought about the culture within the hospital, the way staff dynamics often played out in private, and how easily talent and dedication could be overshadowed by arrogance. He saw colleagues exchanging subtle glances outside the room, some supportive, some hesitant, unsure whether to intervene. It was a complex ecosystem, one in which power and respect were constantly negotiated. Angela's situation highlighted a glaring imbalance, and the patient silently vowed to remember it. His curiosity grew as he observed the intricate interaction between authority and humility. He noticed how Dr. Harris's condescending tone seemed almost rehearsed, a pattern designed to keep others in check. Yet, Angela's responses were natural, unflinching, and precise. She never raised her voice, never allowed frustration to take over, and maintained a steady rhythm of professionalism that contrasted sharply with the doctor's aggressive display. The patient could sense the tension building, a tension that hinted at something more significant than a simple disagreement. And then, amidst the critique and professional facade, the patient began to notice subtle signs that suggested Angela's actions had been flawless from a procedural standpoint. Her documentation was accurate, her timing precise, her care methodical. The doctor's harsh criticism had no real foundation beyond his own ego. This realization made the patient lean forward slightly in his bed, a flicker of concern crossing his face. He understood that this wasn't just a minor workplace issue, it was a situation that demanded acknowledgement and, perhaps, correction. What made the moment even more compelling was the patient's awareness that appearances could be deceiving. To Dr. Harris, he was just another patient, someone inconsequential in the daily flow of hospital operations. But in truth, he held a position of influence that could change the trajectory of what was unfolding in the room. The thought crossed his mind almost playfully at first, like a secret waiting to be revealed. The imbalance of knowledge and power created a tension that only he seemed aware of, and he silently relished the anticipation of the coming revelation. As Angela continued her work, calmly attending to the patient while maintaining her composure under scrutiny, the patient felt a growing sense of respect and empathy. He could see her commitment, her integrity, and her unwavering professionalism. In contrast, he saw the doctor's arrogance, his inability to recognize his own faults, and the superficial display of authority that overshadowed real competence. The juxtaposition was stark, almost theatrical, and yet entirely real. By the time Dr. Harris had finished his initial round of criticism, the patient had formed a quiet, analytical judgment about the entire scenario. He wasn't just an observer anymore, he was a witness to injustice, a participant in the unfolding story whose next actions could dramatically alter its course. He understood the significance of what he had seen and felt a subtle responsibility to intervene when the right moment came. For now, though, he remained patient and silent, letting the situation develop naturally, knowing that the true impact of the interaction would only be revealed when the right time arrived. In that moment, the room became more than just a hospital ward. It was a stage for human behavior, a lesson in power, humility, and professional integrity. The patient's perspective added an unseen layer of tension and anticipation, quietly foreshadowing the twist that would soon change everything. While Angela endured humiliation with grace, and Dr. Harris continued his performance of authority, the patient silently prepared for a revelation that neither the nurse nor the doctor could yet predict, a revelation that would turn the room upside down and redefine the dynamics of respect, power, and accountability. Angela felt the weight of the doctor's harsh words pressing down on her like a physical force. For a brief moment, a flash of frustration and hurt passed through her mind, a spark that any normal person would feel in such an unfair situation. But she had learned long ago that reacting in anger or defensiveness in moments like these only played into the hands of those seeking to belittle her. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and reminded herself of who she was, a professional with years of experience, skill, and knowledge, who was capable of handling adversity with calm and dignity. Her eyes briefly met the patient's. Even in the middle of this tension, she wanted him to feel reassured, to understand that he was in capable hands. Angela's tone remained steady as she answered the doctor's questions, her voice clear and unwavering. She corrected the minor misunderstandings politely, without raising it to a confrontation. Every gesture, every word, was precise and professional, a subtle display of confidence that contrasted sharply with the doctor's aggressive demeanor. Internally, Angela's mind was a whirlwind. She was aware of how humiliating the situation looked to anyone watching, how the doctor's behavior might influence perceptions, and how easily her professionalism could be overshadowed by his arrogance. Yet she refused to let it break her. She thought about the years of training, the countless patients she had cared for, and the sacrifices she had made to get to this point in her career. This wasn't just about defending herself, it was about maintaining the integrity of her profession and setting an example for others in the hospital who might one day face similar treatment. As Dr. Harris continued his condescending critique, Angela subtly used every opportunity to stay in control of the narrative. She responded with factual clarity, avoided emotional reactions, and demonstrated her competence at every turn. Even when he tried to trip her up with questions designed to embarrass her, she answered with calm precision, never allowing his arrogance to dictate her actions. It was a delicate balance, asserting knowledge without appearing defiant, maintaining respect while also silently challenging the unjust behavior in front of her. She also noticed the subtle reactions of other staff members. Some were sympathetic, their eyes offering silent support, others were hesitant, unsure whether to speak up. Angela felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride that her colleagues recognized her professionalism, and sadness that this kind of humiliation was a reality that so many dedicated healthcare workers had to endure. She resolved that no matter what happened, she would continue to do her job with dignity and care, refusing to let the doctor's behavior define her or her worth. Meanwhile, Angela's mind was not entirely inward-focused, she was acutely aware of the patient's presence. She wanted to convey confidence, competence, and reassurance, because the patient had the right to feel safe and cared for, even in the middle of conflict. Her professionalism became a shield not only for herself but also for the patient, who was silently observing the dynamics of the room. Angela's calm, respectful demeanor in the face of humiliation subtly communicated to the patient that she was in control, that she was skilled, and that she was someone to trust. Despite the public embarrassment, Angela allowed a quiet sense of determination to grow inside her. She understood that this moment, though difficult, could become a defining one. Her reaction was not about proving the doctor wrong in that instant. It was about preserving her dignity, demonstrating professionalism, and ensuring that her actions spoke louder than his words. Every measured response, every steady movement, and every calm explanation was a testament to her resilience. What was remarkable in that moment was how Angela transformed humiliation into a quiet display of strength. While Dr. Harris intended to undermine her, she turned the situation into a demonstration of competence and character. Her reaction was not loud or confrontational, but it was undeniably powerful. It left a subtle impression on everyone in the room, the patient, the staff, and even the doctor, though he was not yet fully aware of it. As the tension in the room reached its peak, Angela continued to work efficiently and calmly, never letting the criticism affect her care for the patient. She maintained a level of professionalism that was almost poetic, a quiet but undeniable statement that skill, integrity, and composure cannot be diminished by arrogance or public humiliation. Unbeknownst to her, her reaction had already begun planting the seeds for the twist that was about to unfold, a revelation that would not only expose the doctor's arrogance but also highlight Angela's unwavering professionalism and strength of character. In that charged atmosphere, Angela's reaction became the heart of the story, a masterclass in poise under pressure, a demonstration of dignity in the face of disrespect, and a reminder that true strength is often silent, calm, and measured. The humiliation intended to weaken her instead revealed the depth of her character, setting the stage for the dramatic turn that the patient, quietly observing all along, was silently preparing to reveal. The tension in the hospital room was no longer subtle, it had thickened into a palpable force that seemed to press down on everyone present. Every word spoken by Dr. Harris carried an edge sharper than before, each glance more scrutinizing, and each pause in the conversation seemed intentionally calculated. Angela, maintaining her calm composure, could feel the intensity escalating, but she refused to let it disrupt her focus. She moved with precision, attending to the patient's needs while carefully navigating the increasingly hostile environment. Each gesture was deliberate, measured, and professional, as though she were silently asserting, "I will not be broken by your arrogance." Dr. Harris paced slightly, his movements controlled but tense, as if the very air in the room fueled his frustration. He picked up the clipboard and scanned it repeatedly, muttering criticisms under his breath. "This isn't acceptable," he said, louder this time, ensuring that the patient could hear every word. "You need to pay attention to the smallest details. This is basic protocol." His tone carried a sense of theatricality, as if he were performing a lecture rather than providing constructive feedback. Angela's mind remained sharp. She calmly reiterated her explanations, documenting every fact meticulously and addressing every point with unwavering accuracy. Her focus was not on the humiliation but on maintaining control, efficiency, and professionalism, despite the doctor's increasingly aggressive approach. Meanwhile, the patient remained quiet, though he was far from passive. He noticed subtle details that others might have missed, the way the doctor's frustration seemed more performative than rational, the sharpness in his tone designed to dominate rather than guide, and the contrast with Angela's calm authority. The patient began to see the imbalance of power more clearly and felt an undercurrent of tension that suggested a breaking point was imminent. It was a situation ripe for revelation, one in which the arrogance of authority could collide with integrity and skill in a way that would leave a lasting impression. Outside the immediate interaction, the other hospital staff began to feel the strain as well. Some nurses shifted uncomfortably in their positions, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. They recognized the injustice, the subtle cruelty of the public criticism, and yet felt powerless to intervene without risking their own professional standing. A few made minor supportive gestures toward Angela, a nod, a quiet word of encouragement, but the room remained under Dr. Harris's suffocating presence. The tension was not just personal, it had begun to affect the entire atmosphere of the ward, creating an almost electric energy that was difficult to ignore. Angela, aware of the scrutiny from both the doctor and her peers, found herself balancing a delicate line. She had to respond with authority without challenging the doctor overtly, maintain composure without seeming passive, and provide care for the patient without letting the rising tension interfere with her work. Each movement was intentional, adjusting in line with precise care, checking the patient's vitals while calmly explaining the process, answering Dr. Harris's pointed questions with facts rather than emotion. Her professionalism became her silent armor, a shield that both protected her dignity and subtly undermined the doctor's attempt to belittle her. The patient's curiosity and awareness deepened with every exchange. He noticed Angela's unwavering composure, her calm and methodical handling of the doctor's critiques, and the subtle confidence in her gestures. At the same time, he could see Dr. Harris's frustration building in real time. The doctor's condescending behavior, meant to assert dominance, was slowly losing its effectiveness because Angela refused to give it the power to define her. Every fact she presented, every patient care decision she defended, chipped away at the facade of authority Dr. Harris had been projecting. A subtle shift began to occur. While Dr. Harris believed he was asserting control, his repeated criticism and lack of awareness of the patient's true significance created a growing tension that was almost tangible. The room seemed to tighten around him, as if the very presence of the patient and Angela's composed strength were silently questioning his authority. Each word from the doctor, intended to humiliate, instead heightened anticipation, an unspoken promise that the coming moments would reveal truths he had not yet considered. Angela's internal strength also grew in response to the rising tension. She reminded herself that this situation, while uncomfortable, was also an opportunity to demonstrate her professionalism and capability. The patient, silently observing, absorbed this display of poise and resilience, recognizing a narrative unfolding before his eyes, one that would soon culminate in a revelation neither Angela nor the doctor could anticipate. By now, the tension had reached a crescendo. Every glance, every word, every pause carried weight. The room had become a stage where power, arrogance, dignity, and patience collided, each element contributing to an almost cinematic atmosphere. It was clear that something pivotal was about to happen, something that would dramatically shift the dynamics in the room, expose true character, and redefine respect, authority, and recognition. In that moment, Angela's composed professionalism, Dr. Harris's unchecked arrogance, and the patient's silent, knowing presence combined to create a charged, suspenseful environment. The stage was set, the rising tension was palpable, and everyone in the room was unknowingly approaching a moment of reckoning that would leave a lasting impact on all who witnessed it. The room felt charged, almost electric, as Dr. Harris continued his relentless criticism, unaware that the balance of power in the room was about to shift dramatically. He leaned over the patient's bed, clipboard in hand, issuing another pointed comment about documentation and timing. Each word was meant to reinforce his authority, to assert dominance not just over Angela but over the very atmosphere of the room itself. He didn't notice the subtle shift in the patient's eyes, a spark that hinted he was no ordinary observer. Angela, still composed, continued her careful explanations, her hands steady as she adjusted equipment and checked vitals. But even she sensed a change, a subtle tension that wasn't coming from the doctor this time. It was almost imperceptible at first, like the quiet before a storm, but gradually it grew into a weight that filled the room. The patient had been watching, absorbing, analyzing, and now, the moment to reveal his identity had arrived. The patient spoke, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable authority. "Dr. Harris, I think it's important for you to know who you're speaking to before passing judgment." His words were measured, deliberate, and they immediately commanded attention. Dr. Harris froze mid-sentence, a flash of confusion crossing his face. He looked up from his clipboard, finally meeting the patient's gaze, and the room seemed to hold its breath. "I'm the hospital administrator," the patient continued, "and I oversee staff performance, patient care standards, and departmental conduct. You may have overlooked this, but your behavior in this room has been observed, and it raises serious concerns about professionalism, respect, and workplace ethics. The revelation hit Dr. Harris like a sudden wave, and the air of arrogance that had dominated the room moments ago began to dissipate. His confidence wavered, replaced by shock and disbelief. Angela remained calm, her composure intact, but inside, a quiet sense of vindication grew. The humiliation she had endured moments before, the relentless critiques, the public belittling, was about to be confronted not with confrontation, but with truth. The patient's revelation flipped the room on its head, turning what had seemed like a routine display of authority into an exposure of arrogance and misconduct. The other staff in the room, previously tense and uncertain, exchanged glances of disbelief and relief. Some whispered quietly among themselves, their earlier hesitation now replaced with quiet admiration for both Angela and the patient. The dramatic turn of events highlighted not only the injustice of the doctor's behavior but also the unseen dynamics at play, how assumptions, arrogance, and lack of awareness could quickly unravel in the face of truth and authority. Dr. Harris opened his mouth, likely to respond, but found himself momentarily speechless. His usual words of authority failed him, and the weight of his misjudgment became evident in the silence that followed. The patient's presence was a quiet but undeniable assertion that authority without accountability was fragile, and that arrogance could crumble when confronted with awareness and integrity. Angela, observing the unfolding moment, felt a profound mixture of relief, validation, and quiet triumph. She had endured humiliation with dignity, had maintained her professionalism under pressure, and now, the truth was visible for everyone to see. The dramatic twist had not only revealed the patient's true identity but also exposed the vulnerability of unchecked arrogance. The patient continued, addressing Dr. Harris with measured calm. "Your expertise is not in question, but your approach here today was inappropriate and disrespectful. Professionalism requires not just skill but humility, respect, and consideration for others. I trust that moving forward, these standards will be upheld." His words carried authority, finality, and a subtle lesson in accountability. The doctor's earlier dominance evaporated in an instant. The very room that had felt constricted by his arrogance now seemed open, as if the tension had been released. Angela's silent strength had been validated. The patient's revelation had shifted the dynamics entirely. What had been a moment of potential humiliation for her was now a moment of quiet justice, one that left everyone in the room, including Dr. Harris, acutely aware of the importance of respect, awareness, and accountability in professional settings. In that instant, the twist was complete. The narrative that had begun with tension, humiliation, and authority imbalance was now transformed into a story of revelation, justice, and professional integrity. The room, once heavy with pressure, now held a new energy, one of recognition, reflection, and respect. Angela's composure and resilience, combined with the patient's surprising and decisive role, had rewritten the story in real time, proving that true strength is often silent, and that accountability can arrive in the most unexpected forms. The silence that followed the patient's revelation hung heavily in the room. Dr. Harris's earlier arrogance had evaporated, replaced by a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and a dawning realization of the gravity of his actions. His authoritative posture had crumpled slightly, his eyes darting nervously as he processed the fact that his behavior had been observed and judged by someone with true authority. The weight of accountability settled over him like a tangible presence, forcing him to confront not only the immediate situation but also the pattern of behavior that had brought him to this point. Angela, standing with quiet composure, felt a deep sense of vindication. Yet, she knew this moment wasn't about revenge, it was about integrity, professionalism, and the importance of maintaining dignity under pressure. Her strength had been in her restraint, in her ability to perform her duties flawlessly while enduring humiliation, and in the subtle but powerful ways she had demonstrated her knowledge, competence, and commitment to patient care. The patient's revelation simply illuminated what everyone had already witnessed but perhaps hadn't fully recognized. Angela's professionalism had been unwavering, and Dr. Harris's conduct had been entirely inappropriate. The hospital staff in the room, who had been tense and hesitant just moments before, now visibly relaxed. Some exchanged knowing glances, their expressions conveying admiration for Angela's resilience and respect for the patient's decisive intervention. Others quietly murmured words of encouragement or approval. The dynamic of the room had shifted completely. The earlier sense of intimidation had been replaced by an atmosphere of reflection and acknowledgement. Dr. Harris cleared his throat, his voice quieter and less assured than before. I see that my approach was unprofessional. I did not intend to cause harm, but I understand now that my behavior was inappropriate. I will ensure this does not happen again. His words, though measured, carried the unmistakable weight of someone recognizing the consequences of their actions. It was the first step toward accountability, a rare moment of humility from someone who had previously relied on authority and intimidation to assert control. The patient nodded, his calm presence reinforcing the seriousness of the lesson. Accountability is not just about acknowledging mistakes, it's about learning from them. True authority is earned through respect, not fear. I expect that professionalism, respect, and empathy will guide interactions moving forward. His words were not harsh or punitive, they were a firm reminder that actions have consequences and that every professional is responsible for upholding standards of conduct, particularly in environments where others' dignity and well-being are at stake. Angela quietly reflected on the experience, her mind replaying the morning's events. She thought about the countless nurses and healthcare workers who faced similar challenges daily, moments of humiliation, subtle or overt discrimination, and the constant need to assert competence in the face of arrogance. She realized that her response had not only protected her dignity but had also set an example, silently inspiring others to maintain composure and professionalism even when faced with unfair treatment. Her internal reflection was a mixture of relief, pride, and renewed determination to continue advocating for fairness and respect in her workplace. The patient's revelation had also served as a powerful teaching moment for everyone in the room. It highlighted the importance of awareness, the need to respect every individual regardless of position, and the consequences of arrogance unchecked by empathy. Dr. Harris, now forced to confront his behavior, had an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to rebuild his reputation on a foundation of humility and professionalism rather than intimidation. The shift in dynamics was a reminder that no one is above accountability, and that the impact of one's actions, especially in professional environments, can reverberate far beyond the moment. As the room gradually returned to its routine rhythm, there was a sense of closure, tempered with reflection. Angela continued her duties with renewed focus, the patient relaxed under her care, and Dr. Harris, now quieter and more introspective, began to reassess his approach to interactions with staff. The story of the morning became more than a personal confrontation, it was a lesson in respect, integrity, and the transformative power of accountability. By the end of the encounter, it was clear that true professionalism and dignity had triumphed over arrogance and public humiliation. Angela's resilience, combined with the patient's timely intervention, had created a moment that would leave a lasting impression, not just on the individuals in the room, but on everyone who heard or witnessed the story. It was a profound reminder that respect, humility, and accountability are the cornerstones of every successful professional environment, and that strength of character often reveals itself most clearly in moments of challenge. As the morning gave way to the quieter rhythm of the hospital day, the events of the previous hour lingered in the minds of everyone present. Angela moved through the ward with her usual grace and efficiency, yet there was a subtle shift in the energy around her. Colleagues offered genuine smiles, some whispered words of admiration, and even those who had previously remained silent seemed to regard her with newfound respect. It wasn't just the result of the doctor's public correction or the patient's revelation, it was the quiet, unwavering strength Angela had displayed under pressure, a demonstration of professionalism that transcended fear, humiliation, or authority. Dr. Harris, for his part, had retreated to a quieter corner of the hospital, the weight of accountability pressing on him like never before. He was forced to confront a reality he had long avoided, that authority without empathy and humility is fragile, and arrogance unchecked can unravel reputations and relationships in moments. The experience was a humbling one, and though he had regained composure, the lesson had been imprinted in his mind. For the first time, he truly understood the human cost of his behavior, the way it affected those he oversaw, the staff who respected him, and, most importantly, the patients who relied on the hospital for care and dignity. Angela, meanwhile, reflected inwardly on the events, her thoughts both personal and universal. She considered the countless nurses and healthcare workers who face similar challenges daily, moments of belittlement, discrimination, and unfair treatment that test their patience, skill, and emotional resilience. What separated moments of humiliation from moments of empowerment, she realized, was not the circumstances themselves but how one responded to them. By maintaining professionalism, composure, and dignity, she had not only protected herself but had also set an example, a quiet but powerful statement about what it means to uphold integrity in the face of adversity. The patient, now aware of the full impact of his intervention, felt a sense of satisfaction and responsibility. By revealing his identity at the right moment, he had shifted the course of events without creating conflict, demonstrating that authority exercised thoughtfully can protect fairness and ensure accountability. He had witnessed firsthand how patience, observation, and timing could turn a situation of potential humiliation into a lesson in justice, respect, and professional growth. In the days that followed, the story of that morning quietly spread through the hospital corridors. Staff began to talk not only about the incident itself but about the lessons embedded within it, the importance of empathy, the necessity of respect for colleagues regardless of position, and the enduring value of maintaining composure under pressure. Angela's strength became an inspiration for others, reminding them that dignity in adversity is a form of power far more enduring than arrogance or fear. Dr. Harris, now reflecting on his actions, took steps to rebuild trust with his colleagues, slowly learning that true leadership requires more than expertise, it demands humility, accountability, and respect. Ultimately, the morning's events transcended a single moment of conflict. They became a story about resilience, integrity, and the quiet heroism inherent in professional dedication. Angela's response under duress, combined with the patient's unexpected revelation, highlighted a profound truth, that the character of a person is often revealed not in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge and scrutiny. Respect, professionalism, and empathy are not abstract ideals, they are practical tools that guide human interactions and shape the culture of workplaces, communities, and institutions. As the ward returned to its normal rhythm, there was a sense of closure and continuity. The tension that had dominated the room was replaced by reflection, learning, and an unspoken acknowledgement of the lessons gained. Angela continued her work, now with an added layer of quiet empowerment, knowing that she had faced humiliation with dignity and emerged stronger. The story, though specific to one morning in one room, carried universal significance, the power of resilience, the importance of accountability, and the enduring impact of integrity and respect in human relationships. The event served as a reminder that moments of injustice, when met with professionalism and courage, can transform into moments of recognition, justice, and inspiration. And in that transformation lies the essence of true human strength, the ability to rise above adversity, maintain dignity, and inspire others, even when the odds seem stacked against you.